to set this up because everything I've heard about this from the lib media is a lie. The big beautiful bill passed, was signed by President Trump. Lots of great stuff in there and lots of stuff that libs are complaining about. But again, they woke up complaining. We don't have time to go through everything, but specifically, I want to talk about the thing that they're the loudest about. Oh my goodness, Medicaid and the reforms that are coming. If you ask a lib, Alessandro Cortez or Schumer or any of them, they will say millions will die because of this. Of course, well, what does it actually say? They've been complaining about cuts to Medicaid, cuts, using that term very, very loosely, and the fact that if Medicaid is even touched, people will die. Unfortunately, that is not the case. Not unfortunately, I don't know why I said unfortunately. It's not good that people die because, well, first of all, that's not what's happening. Here's what I thought was, I think, the most fascinating part about this. With all of the talk about Medicaid, this is from the Wall Street Journal. Starting December 31st, 2026, in other words, in a year and a half, people on Medicaid will basically have to prove that they're eligible for Medicaid and work 80 hours a month or volunteer 80 hours a month or have somebody under the age of 14. In other words, the frantic panic around people will be killed by this bill because of Medicaid reforms means, oh, so they just have to have a job or volunteer for an extended period of time? Well, that sounds fine. And it doesn't kick in for another year and a half. Well, geez, can we make it any faster? Bottom line here is the libs are complaining about something that isn't existing, and such is the norm. Let's bring in our panel to discuss this and so much more. Stephanie Hamill is a conservative commentator. Will Donahue is the president of the College Republicans of America. Guys, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us on.
Stephanie, I want to get to you with this. The fever pitch from the libs has been, oh my gosh, millions will be dead. There's no coming back to this. But if you actually read the law and what it does specifically regarding Medicaid reform, it seems thoroughly reasonable here. Are the libs going to continue trying pulling the wool over people's eyes?
Joe Bob, you're acting like surprised and shocked. Everything that President Trump does is like the sky is falling. I mean, he could literally come up with a cure for cancer tomorrow and they would still have an issue with it. You can't take these people serious. And when they start to complain very loudly about anything that the Trump administration is doing, you know that the Trump administration is doing something right. And of course, the bill's not perfect. There's a lot of stuff in there that some Republicans can complain about, but there's a lot of good things in there. And this is all a part of the art of the deal, if you will. You're not going to get everything that you want every single time. And so there has to be compromise. But what President Trump wants is for people to be patient and see the whole picture. And I'll tell you, I trust President Donald J. Trump because he's always delivered.
Yeah. William, I'm looking at this going, okay, wait, so it doesn't, this whole work requirement thing doesn't even kick in until the end of next year. That seems way too forgiving for me. And they're still complaining about it. What is this like to you? Is this too tight of a ship or is this not tight of a ship enough?
No, I think it's perfectly calibrated. You got over 400 people trying to make a pizza and trying to decide which ingredients to put on it. It's always going to be hard to get them to agree. But of course, there's exceptions for those who are not able-bodied or have other problems. I think it's a totally fair requirement. We're talking about 20 hours a week, and this can come in the form of many different things. I think it's important with all of these welfare programs that people are continuing to work. I saw a video of a woman the other day chastising her son not to get a job because she'd lose her Section 8 housing.
Yeah.
It's not the same kind of topic, but it's in the same kind of realm of we need to make sure people are working and that they're not living off of government subsistence.
Yeah, and it's really not that difficult to find a job or volunteer, get somebody to sign off. Honestly, there's too many ways that you can hack this system. And yeah, 400 people trying to make a pizza. As long as they don't put pineapple on it, I think I'm good with that. Which I know probably rubs some feathers the wrong way.
Disavow.
The hate emails are coming in. I can hear people typing right now.
Yeah, well, the emails are coming in hot and heavy. Stephanie, this I thought was interesting. We'll zoom out 30,000 feet in terms of just kind of thinking about this in the legal term, but also the cultural term. There's a father that is suing the school of his daughter. She's 14 years old. She decided earlier in the year she was going to sit during the Pledge of Allegiance. which has been pointed out, that is her right to do, but they're suing the school because the teacher gave her opinion on it, which to me, what this is the student decided to quote unquote protest, which again, nobody's stopping her from doing that, but at the same time, you're not allowing the teacher to say, hey, that's not cool, we don't like that, you shouldn't do it, which seems like free speech to me. There's a lot more particulars going on, but that's kind of the broad strokes of it. Stephanie, yes, the student has the right to quote unquote protest by sitting down for the Pledge of Allegiance, but in my opinion, the teacher has a right to say that's a dumb protest. What are your thoughts?
100% agree with you. And when I just want to like zoom out for a minute, the fact that young kids don't want to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. They don't want to recognize the greatest country in America and how lucky they are to live in this beautiful country. I mean, I can't even imagine when I was a kid having the audacity to sit down or even think that we didn't live in the greatest country. So it really makes me sad. You have to wonder what type of parent she has. I'm thinking probably like green-haired, short parents that, you know, show up at the Women's March, the typical leftist type, like you know who they are when you see them in a room because they all look the same. And so, yeah, it's devastating. Of course, we live in a nation where we have freedom of speech, and that's wonderful, but it is really soul crushing to see young people not appreciate what they have.
Yeah, that's a big element in that. That's the cultural element here. Will, first of all, I don't really like talking about this because the girl is 14 years old, but at the same time, they did a press conference, her and her dad and her attorneys. Her attorney said that she has suffered extensive social and emotional injuries, which nice use of that language term there, recurring nightmares and high level of stress, including social injuries. Because the teacher said, hey, that's a dumb idea, don't do that. I don't know, your thoughts on what the school districts do and maybe the lawsuit as a whole.
Look, if West Virginia v. Barnett taught us anything, it's this. You can sit during the pledge, you can burn the flag, you can run for mayor of New York. It doesn't matter. It's freedom. Yeah. We've got a 14-year-old Palestinian girl who refused to stand for the pledge, which is a bold move, you know, skipping class and taking on American foreign policies. So Gen Z of her. But, you know, this is Michigan. The Pledge of Allegiance is a regional sacrament, right? People take more offense to it than if you're skipping church, unfortunately. But this isn't necessarily a breach of the students' rights, as long as it doesn't, raise to the point of discrimination, harassment, or retaliation. I think the teachers got, it falls under protected discourse under Morse v. Frederick. The teacher has some level of protection in order to steer the discourse within their own class, particularly in civics. So if the professor is trying to correct the behavior and not punish, she should be okay. Now, I don't know about that, telling people they should go home. Not that I disagree, to be honest with you, but it probably was not appropriate. I like the sentiment, though. If you hate this country, don't be here, right? I think that's totally fine to say.
Yeah, and I might have buried the lead here too. It's not like she got kicked out of class. She didn't get a grade deduction or anything like that. The teacher just said, hey, this is not. And also to that comment that you mentioned there, a teacher said, if you don't like it, go home. Apparently that was a side conversation in private, according to the family themselves. Again, don't like kids not standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. They probably have the right to do that. At the same time, teacher has the right to voice their dissent as well.